We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. If you're listening to this on the podcast later, wondering where this video was all week, just here to remind you guys, this is the one segment per week that is exclusively on the Line Movement YouTube channel. So if you're here already, welcome in. Toss a like on this video. Consider subscribing, all that good stuff. You're doing all of that for us because I'm going to try and continue to bring you guys a bunch of value, but also bring you guys some of the best guests in the entire industry. One of those people joins me again today. He's the director of DFS at 4for4 Football. Good buddy of mine, Hernandez. Welcome back to the show, my friend. How was week 7 for you?
Holka, what's up, buddy? Week 7 was fun because we had the Sunday night hammer back, so that was interesting. So it helped me in some spots, hurt me in others. I didn't win $1 million, didn't even win $50,000, but it was a good week. It was actually really fun to have that Sunday night hammer back. And actually just see people make egregious mistakes. I actually talked about in my write-up on the FanDuel Sunday Million, the winner had Kirk instead of Hopkins instead of flex, just like the egregious mistake of not having your most expensive guy in the flex.
Oh, God.
Still won the million, so it didn't matter, but it's just fun to see stuff like that to people that have never played like we used to have to deal with back when we were kids and we had to sweat Sunday night for main slate.
You know the people that have been around a while because they're very aware of this like late night hammer, but the late night hammer is not in the afternoon, is that Sunday night, right? So that's It was fun to have a slate like that again. Obviously, people paying attention with late swap, pretty big advantage there. Anytime I think about that thing in the flex though, not having the most expensive latest guy in there, I always think about our CEO Chris Neville. I don't know if he watches these videos, but him and I have been doing some one-on-one stuff for a while now. But literally every Sunday, even if it's actually during the year, during NHL also, no matter what, always burns his flex in the 1 p.m. games. Literally every week. He's playing like really high stakes. Guy's playing like $25K a week. So I don't know. It's not everyone.
The latest, most expensive possible, guys. It's that simple. It'll save you and make you a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, so we're going to do things, I guess, a little bit differently for TJ, but last week with Mike Tagliere, we went through our 5 locks of the week on DraftKings, a little bit different than just going through quickly through, 10 or 15 players. Sometimes these shorter segments, it's nice to just dive a little bit deeper into some locks of the week. So we're going to do one at each position. TJ, at quarterback this week, Ryan Tannehill, he's 6,800. He's at Cincinnati. Titans have the second highest team total on the slate, currently 5.5-point favorites at blitzbet.eu. Curious your thoughts here, though, man. I know Derrick Henry is going to be mega chalky again, of course.
Yeah, Derrick Henry is going to be mega chalky, but if you look at the other quarterbacks, we got Russ priced way up, we got Aaron Rodgers priced way up, Mahomes back to the old Mahomes salary, blowing away the field there. So Tannehill gives you similar efficiency to all those guys at the discounted price that you mentioned. One thing that I look at with the efficiency metrics is like people look at touchdown rate, yards per attempt. Fantasy points per attempt kind of rolls all those things into one. Take out the rushing yardage, and Ryan Tannehill top 3 in fantasy points per pass attempt, only trailing Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. So against that Cincy defense that ranks 24th in schedule adjusted points allowed to opposing quarterbacks, this is just an offense that I want a lot of pieces of. Tannehill is going to give you that efficiency against that defense. Obviously, you're going to get some variance there, whether he or Henry gets the touchdowns. And we do have win concerns, but we have win concerns a lot of places this week. So it's going to be hard to avoid those. And you can argue that those concerns are built into his salary a little bit. So it's a week. We'll get to it with the next position, but we might end up getting in a position where we have to pay down at quarterback because some of our value might disappear by the time Sunday rolls around.
Yeah, just looking at quarterback this week, like you said, Patrick Mahomes all the way up 8,100, Russell Wilson 7,800. So we're going to have to find some savings somewhere. I do have one quick question for you though, TJ. So you mentioned that metric fantasy point. What do you say? Fantasy points per pass attempt?
I like to look. Yeah, and that's just looking at passing. It takes out the rushing. So it's similar to like a fantasy point per drop back. What's that?
It does include touchdowns.
Yeah. So it's going to correlate a lot with touchdown rates, but it's just a quick and dirty way to look at passing efficiency, fantasy efficiency, take out some of those rushing touchdowns, and figure out who is throwing. And it probably works better for some other guys that find themselves in good situations that haven't had a lot of volume or haven't been balling out like a Jimmy Garoppolo. He's actually top 10 in fantasy points per pass attempt in a good situation this week. So it helps you pinpoint guys like that. But I think it's a good metric to look at.
Yeah, I like that. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Nice total in this game, though. We know that if there's one thing that correlates really directly to quarterback scoring, it's team totals, but also just like what TJ said, like these touchdowns are very important. It's interesting, though, because I seem to always get Derrick Henry wrong no matter what. Like last week, I was feeling great, opened up some of my mid-stakes contests and saw that I got Derrick Henry at 1%. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to win everything. And then I get the floor game, obviously, because no one's on him. The week where he's like really, I guess I mentioned this to Peter over, is that I was like, where's my 90-yard touchdown I'm supposed to get from Derrick Henry, man? He's like, no, you got this all wrong, man. You only get those when he's like 35% owned. So that'll probably be this week, right?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I'm in the same thought as you, especially like on DraftKings where he's not catching passes. I'm like, this is the guy you want at 10% ownership. And I mean, what last year I just went like full fade, and that was even worse. So I guess Same. At least we're getting it wrong and giving ourselves a chance to win. But I'm right there with you, man. He's always a tough one. But I mean, that process is going to get you there eventually. And I mean, you've talked about it a ton on your show. It's like we're not trying to count our number of wins. It's just when we win, we want to win big, and eventually that process is going to get you to that spot.
Man, people online have very strong feelings about Derrick Henry. I've found out a lot of people, I kind of posted something on Twitter earlier this week, like kind of joking about like I wasn't sure if I should play Derrick Henry. And people were like, oh man, it's a great matchup. Plug him in. Like he's just going to go off for these big rounds. I was like, man, you guys literally don't even understand my troll right now. So anyways, let's move on to running backs. So your running back lock of the week, this is exactly the guy that I would have picked for the record. Kareem Hunt, 6,900, obviously a pretty nice price tag there versus the Raiders. Sixth highest team total on the slate, currently 2.5 point favorites at blitzbet.eu. TJ, why is Hunt your lock of the week?
He got 95% of the running back touches last week. I saw a couple of people complaining about his snap share going into last week, but he was still over 2/3 running back share in the 2 games before last week. 21 plus touches in 2 of his last 3 games. So he's getting the workload that we expected him to get without Chubb. Some people thought he was going to be the running back one overnight. That's hard to do, especially in an offense that isn't really that efficient overall. They've had some nice ceiling spots this year, but overall not an efficient offense. But they're playing a Raiders defense that ranks in the bottom 10 in schedule adjusted points allowed to every single skill position, not just running backs, 30th against running backs. So just a bad defense all around. But again, another game with major win concerns. So if that does come into fruition, we could see Hunt get even bigger role than we expect going into this game. It could be like a 25 touch game. And then this is probably the best O-line D-line matchup for at least for the rushing game. Cleveland top 5 in adjusted line yards. The Raiders bottom 10 in adjusted line yards allowed. So everything kind of points to a Kareem Hunt game here. I don't think too many people are going to be surprised with that. We have him as the top value over on 4 for 4. But I think we should probably discuss the fact that if we had more clarity in what was going to happen in Seattle and to a lesser extent in Cincy, those guys would be a little bit higher. But there's a lot of question marks in those 2 games, and kind of what I alluded to with the quarterbacks, it's going to determine where and what we could spend at other positions.
Definitely. I mean, we've seen before just Stefanski absolutely just load up his running backs with touches when it's needed. And if there's a lot of wind concerns in this game, if we get some weather, I think there's a chance they just lean on Hunt pretty heavily, knowing that Chubb should be back after their bye. So I think that's a really interesting spot. I don't understand why they don't like to move his price up a ton. I think they're definitely going to lean on him, try and make Baker a little bit more comfortable back there without OBJ. Hopefully they can keep that rolling a little bit. So this next one was really interesting. I'm with you. I think the price is somewhat questionable, but wide receiver lock of the week, Brandon Ayuk at Seattle. Obviously not a great team total here, but this game carries the highest over under on the slate at blitzbet.eu. So no Debo Samuel. So tell me why you think Ayuk makes a ton of sense on DraftKings this week.
Sure. Well, one reason I wanted to give the listeners something a little more unique than
Nice.
Devontae Adams or all of the Titans. So, let's give maybe
Love it.
if you're not using a lineup generator, might not pop to you. But with Debo Samuel out, Ayuk, even with him out for partial part of the game last week, 28% target share, and then the last game Debo Samuel is out, 22% target share. Ayuk is the only pass catcher besides Samuel and Kittle on the 49ers that has seen a game with a target share of at least 20%. So we should expect that to spike. Seattle actually been pretty good against tight ends. I don't think that's going to stop them from Kittle having a big game. I mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo has actually been quietly efficient, top 10 in that fantasy points per pass attempt metric, and Seattle just getting roasted by the pass. I mean, they're like the shootout team this week. So I do think people might be a little trepidatious about San Francisco's passing game just because Jimmy G's raw numbers don't look great. They haven't scored a ton of points. I keep hearing a lot of people say Niners are this run first team. If we look at neutral game script, they're like right in the middle, like top half of the league. So now that they're in a situation where not only are they going to have to pass, but playing a defense that's pretty easy to pass against, I don't see any reason to not be stacking this game on both sides. I mean, Ayuk is a cash play in my opinion, but I think you could stack the 49er side and bring it back with Seattle if you're trying to get unique here and not be too concerned about it.
Yeah, I think of some of like the higher total games overall. This might be one that people don't go as heavy on as they should. Seattle bottom 3 against the pass, giving up just a crazy amount of plays to opposing offensives right now. So I would imagine that we'll get Ayuk. I mean, 6-7 targets in this spot. So that's still a pretty nice price point for him for sure. So moving on. What's that?
I'll say, and he could easily add 30 yards on the ground.
True. Yeah. How much of that Debo role do you think he'll take in terms of like actually getting some rushing attempts?
I mean, he's already had a couple games where he's hit 20 or 30 yards. Mm-hmm. So I think he gets a pretty big chunk of it. And ironically, going back to the passing, like out of all these big number games, Seattle's going to be the one that might have the nice weather.
That's crazy to think about. All right, so this next one, your tight end lock of the week, Travis Kelce, 6,600, massive home favorite against the Jets, 19.5 point favorite actually, which is just crazy. Chiefs do have the highest team total on the slate. Sounds like you're paying up at tight end this week.
Yeah, I mean, if I can, I'm paying up at tight end. This is more just I wanted to give the Chiefs a nod and mention that kind of like the when do I get Derrick Henry right? It's like when do I get Tyreek or Travis Kelce right?
Yeah.
Theoretically, in the spots where teams are in really positive game script, that should favor the tight end. People really undervalue how positive game script favors tight end. Kelce's top 3 at the position in target share. He's going to be a huge part of this offense. And we actually really haven't seen like the huge Tyreek blow up games. Kelce's been the one getting those games. So in this spot, if it gets to a point where they don't have to keep going hard in the fourth quarter, I think Kelce is kind of the guy I like here, and I just want to have parts of this Chiefs offense. It's a really unique offense in that they're always kind of going to be at the top of these implied projections, and then people they don't get the crazy ownership we see with some of the other teams. Like we always see Kelce's going to be one of the highest owned tight ends, but Tyreek's always going to have a little bit of depressed ownership. Mahomes isn't getting like the 15 to 20% ownership that you're getting on some of these other like Seattle stacks. So you always kind of have a chance to be at least a little bit unique if you game stack the Chiefs side of things. Like again, they're not going to be single digit ownership, but you're going to get a lot of guys that aren't 20% when maybe they should be.
Have you ever seen a game where the spread was actually larger than the opposing team total? Like the Jets aren't even like
so insane. I think it's like I made a joke on Twitter this week that like 3 people probably got going back to like the old days of DFS, and I said the Jets defense would have been $1 on Draft Street this week. Like I think the last time. Oh, dude, yeah, it was like the site they were known for having like $3 defenses, and the last time I think we saw a spread higher than the team's total was like that because of that joke was like Jaguars Broncos in the Peyton Manning year.
Well, there you have it. TJ Hernandez endorsing the Jets at 2K this week. So his defense lock of the week, the Green Bay Packers. They're 2,900, so that's a very cheap home favorite, 7-point home favorites against the Vikings. Any other reason that you like them outside of them just being a cheaper home favorite in the spot?
Well, I know that I have to sell you on this one because you hate the defense against the team that doesn't throw a lot. And there's no team that throws less than Minnesota, but they have a really good offensive line versus defensive line matchup. The Vikings have been horrible at protecting Kirk Cousins. They're bottom 5 in adjusted sack rate allowed. Green Bay top 10 in adjusted sack rate. And on top of that, Kirk Cousins actually leads the league in interception rate. So if this game plays out like we'd expect with the Packers as really big favorites and they get ahead and they force Kirk Cousins to throw, then we're going to have increased opportunities for some turnovers and sacks there in a situation that, based on what we've seen from the Vikings so far, should set up very nicely. The price is inviting enough where they're not like crazy overpriced for a team that's that big of a favorite. But yeah, I mean, we are going to have some concerns. You can make the argument that you don't want them in cash because if the game is close or the wins are a big concern, the Vikings just don't throw a lot to begin with. So they don't check every single box. They're not the flow chart perfection that some people might like, but there's enough there, I think, to really like the Packers. I mean, I couldn't just give the Chiefs -19, right? That's too easy.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of paying down a defense. Of course, I don't think I don't think there is like a slam dunk Washington defense this week like last week, right? So at the cheaper end, I think Green Bay is definitely interesting. I think Cleveland at 2,600 is interesting if you're trying to kind of play the other side of just like stacking up that game. Maybe you play the defense, but outside of that, I think that those are the two that I would look to that are a little bit cheaper. TJ Hernandez, he is the director of DFS at 4for4 Football. Let the people know where they can find your stuff, what to expect on Twitter outside of all of your bad beer takes and stuff like that, man. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. I mean, you nailed it. Pretty much everything's over at 4for4. You can find everything on Twitter at TJ Hernandez. We're doing this on Discord. We started a 4for4 Discord this year. I'm doing a AMA every Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. It's kind of like a premium update of the DFS MVP podcast that we record, and I get to talk to people directly. So it's really fun. Sets up a really dynamic back and forth with the users, and a lot of the users have ideas that I didn't think of. So we all come up with ideas and win money together. And really everybody that's been in that Discord has really been having a really good season. So I think there's a lot to say for having that back and forth with people.
Discord's great, man. Like all these people have been probably consuming your content for all this time, but actually having that direct, like kind of one-on-one conversation with them is super valuable. So everyone should check out the 4for4 Discord. Good luck this week, man. We'll talk to you in a few.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.